feel home in France? It's good to come back in France for.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's only for me. It's only just a short flight away from where I live. I'm getting to feel very used to coming here. Yes. No, I do feel quite comfortable around here in Paris, and it's good that I can do this, you know, stuff in Europe, because obviously Roberts isn't in the States, and it's a lot harder for him to come over, and it's a lot easier for me to come over, so we can arguably cover more area, the two of us, because he can do predominantly the United States and I can predominantly do, you know, Europe.
So yeah, for the 13th album, French album of Walking Dead, one usual question: are you superstitious when we see a 13th?
That's never occurred to me, funnily enough. No, not really. I think volume 13's come out in America, obviously, a few months ago, and that seemed to do okay, so. Well, to be honest, you know, I just saw it as a new avenue to explore. You know, we haven't done this sort of storyline before, especially because there is genuinely nothing sinister about the community. It's not like the town of Woodbury, yeah, run by the governor and things like that. They're genuinely going into a place where the guy in charge is, for all his faults, is a good guy. So it's interesting where the drama comes from something like that, as opposed to, shall we say, the more obvious sort of thing, which would be Woodbury, where, you know, the drama comes from this tyrant running a town, and they're all, you know, majority of them are all nasty types, and, you know, there's an obvious sort of conflict. So the challenge was, I suppose, just to bring in the conflict from other areas. But the last volume is the stuff that I really enjoy drawing, which is, you know, the human drama and what arises from all that, not so much the zombies, of which there's plenty of that in volume 14.
And Rick character that very involved from the book one for this 13th, where a very kind guy, a policeman, have lived in a very rough episode, and now it's a kind of a man with a broken soul who have to have a normal life again. What do you mind when you draw this change of mind with a new, very clean, no barb, and in his mind is completely
yes, the contrast. Chaos. He's all cleaned up, yet he's more run down and broken than ever before. I mean, I think the contrast shows more, especially in the first few issues, shows more with Carl, that he can't cope with this sort of pretend normality than Rick can't. I mean, Rick does try and fit in, blend in, whatever, and then it's obvious that he's also having a hard time blending in as well. But Carl's the one to sort of bring Rick's internal thoughts outwards first. And it's interesting to see how all the different characters react in different ways to this, you know, this new community, and yeah, should we say how fragile it ultimately is.
How this idea of a telephone to speak to his dead wife, it's a Kirk idea.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's one you need to ask Robert. The where he got the telephone idea from. But I think it's just another way of showing Rick's gradual descent into, shall we say, madness, or will he be saved from this descent, or will he just gradually just keep going crazier and crazier? He has sort of, it's weird because he has sort of moments of clarity and then moments of utter derangement. So it's a very interesting character arc he's going through at the moment.
This episode, the face and the expression of the characters are very important, maybe more than the action. Do you enjoy to put very all your talent on this face expression, to make important this face expression?
Oh well, that's what I prefer to draw. Yeah, it is the emotion of the characters, and that's the thing that has always attracted me more to The Walking Dead rather than the zombie mayhem. I've always been more a guy that prefers to draw sort of intimate character moments and the challenge of drawing that, which in a lot of ways is harder to draw because you've got to make 2 or 3 pages of people just interacting, people just talking, interesting. You could easily just do, close up of face 1, close up of face 2, close up of face 1 again, close up of face 2, and just almost treat it like a kind of a run-of-the-mill soap opera where you've got 2 cameras, one angled at one face, one angled at the other, and perhaps a third for the long shot. But obviously that would be very tedious to draw in comics page after page. So you've always got to think of the other ways you can make it look interesting, and that's the challenge for me. That's what I really enjoy, and it's arguably easier to do the action stuff because it almost draws itself in a lot of ways. It's fairly obvious how you lay out an action scene, but it's not so obvious to lay out an interesting sort of scene of dialogue. Have to get those zombies in here and there, so it's not, it's not that I don't enjoy drawing zombies, but I think if the book was wall-to-wall zombies all the time, I wouldn't, genuinely wouldn't enjoy drawing it. It's funny actually, that's probably one of my favourite panels is that splash of the sort of the first time you ever see a horde of zombies attacking the car. I was really pleased how that turned out. So long as we're not doing it every issue, I'm more than happy to give the fans what they want, but within within reason. And I think the fans are thankful as well because they that's the best sort of Walking Dead reader is the person that enjoys the character moments as well as the zombie action.
Do you are influenced by the fact that this young boy have now some kind of adult attitude, and when you draw Carl, you think it's not anymore a young boy face, and you have to make him more adult one, mature one?
Yeah, it's interesting because drawing children is perhaps the hardest thing to draw because I've got children myself, and I look at photographs of my youngest kid he'll be 6 next month. So if I look back a year ago and I see him at 5, the difference between a year, obviously this is all very obvious stuff, but a year between somebody like myself who's 44, when I was 43, you can't tell the difference at all. So in a lot of ways it's easy to draw adults because, and the older they get, the easier for me it becomes because you have a larger age range to depict a certain age, whereas with a child you have to draw literally pinpoint an age, a year, and an attempt to draw that year. So, but I think I've sort of, whether it's consciously or unconsciously, Carl has grown up in terms of how I draw him as well, because yes, like you say, he is now, arguably, and for the stuff he's been saying in the community, he's actually the most mature of all that. He's one of the few people that's not putting on the blinkers and pretending everything's normal and fantastic. He's the one that can't handle this sort of, like I said before, pretend reality. He knows the zombies are still out there, and he's the one that's sort of acting as this warning, saying, well, we can't just live our lives and pretend nothing's happened, which they kind of are, the community. So, and obviously inevitably his words ring true. So Carl has definitely, he's one of the most interesting of the characters of The Walking Dead, because his whole character arc is has gone from being a child through to being this sort of child adult. You could argue he's developed the most of anybody, but obviously a child would, because they're sponges and they absorb so much more than adults do anyway. Especially their formative years, and of course these Carl's aged about, his age in the book is 8 or 9, so he's probably aged at least 15 years in real in adult time throughout the book. It's sad to see, especially the long-term characters go. It was all, excuse me. It's always sad to see. It was sad to see Tyrese go originally. I think he was, especially because obviously Robert cleverly set him up as almost like Rick's second in command, and generally, the secondary hero doesn't meet a nasty end, but he did. So it's a shame to see characters like that go. It was a shame. It's a shame to see most characters, because you do get close to them. But having said that, it's a necessity. So I never think, why kill that one, because we could have done so much more with that character. It's in a lot of ways it's kind of fun to kill off characters where you just literally get into them, get into their modus operandi, and want to know where they're going to go from here, and then suddenly you cut it short, because that's life. And I think that's what The Walking Dead is. It's just trying to be as real and as real as possible, and with that becomes the brutality of real life.
An example of a real one that say, it will be a good one for this.
Right. No. It's a short answer to that. It's just the look of Douglas is just just made up from how Robert originally described him to how I put him down on the page. But from an artistic point of view, he's one of my most favourite characters to draw at the moment. I enjoy drawing Douglas. And he's again a nice complex character as well, a good guy at heart, got best interests, but still talk about flawed at the same time. I purposely gave him, the one thing I was conscious of was I didn't want to draw him totally like your average, like you say, your average soldier. So I actually consciously strayed away from the sort of the crew cut haircut that he probably would have had. That's why he's got this kind of bizarre, it's sort of got more accentuated over the as the issues have gone on, but it's turned into a bit of an Elvis quiff of late. There's that definite with it going on, which I from my point of view I was kind of conscious of doing because it sort of takes away from the obvious sort of soldier looks to him, because he still has a penchant for wearing combat trousers, and later he's wearing a combat jacket as well, because I just presumed he'd have the set, and I think Robert asked for the moustache, and again I think it's one of those things. I think if you had a shaved hair with that moustache, it would have been again more of a cliche, but I think we've sort of slightly strayed away from the cliche by adding those other little bits, so he's again one of the more interesting characters now. And again, another character I do have fun drawing. He's a character I can really sort of get my artistic teeth into. Is it Birmingham? Well, it would be as interesting as it would be. I can't imagine how on earth they'd get to another country. They've taken 80 issues to cross half of the US, so it's asking a lot to suddenly have them somehow get to another. Well, unless they went back south and ended up in Central or South America, but or go to Canada, I suppose, conceivably. It's not. The Walking Dead's not about. Obviously, it's not about. It's not James Bond. It's not how many countries we can cram into a series and the exotic locations. But sometimes I think it would be nice to draw something different. I'm kind of got more conscious of they've traversed landscapes which are kind of very humdrum, very normal. Which is fine, because I think that adds to the series. It's never been about spectacle. I think it would be weird if they suddenly sort of arrived at the Grand Canyon or something like that, or Niagara Falls, or as much as it would be kind of fun to draw. The book's not about that. You never know where we might go next. And it was logical they end up in Washington DC, which it's a fair, and they end up in a very nondescript part of town. They're not sort of wandering around, the Lincoln Memorial and the Capitol building all the time, and you're getting a who's who of great monuments that we have known. Obviously they did have to go through the centre, so there was that one shot of the Capitol, but it was generally it's we want it grounded in reality, and the reality is they would, as most of us experience, most of us don't normally live next door to the Statue of Liberty. Well, that would be hard because that's in an island, but most of us don't live next door to the Eiffel Tower. If every time I drew France and you drew the Eiffel Tower, it's just it's not like that.
What do you think of what?
No, I genuinely really like it. It's the perfect. I think it's the perfect marriage of how to do a TV show, stroke movie, whatever. How to adapt a comic book. I'm not naive. I don't believe you should just do a straightforward adaptation. I think something like Watchmen proves that's not what you do. And but on the other hand, it's not completely different to the book as well. It's got the feel of the book. It's got obviously the storyline, the general thrust of the comic is there, and obviously they've got their own characters in the book, and I imagine if you imagine the comic is like that, a straight line, the TV series does that, basically to stay behind us as well, because it has to deviate for various reasons. I mean, one reason is if it didn't deviate, it would catch us up really quickly, because next season's going to be 13 episodes. That's a lot of that's a lot of TV time, and they could catch us up really quickly. I mean, you sort of have to stay ahead. And plus the reason is it's not you've got to realise, we all have to realise that, let's say in the States anyway, probably 50,000, 60,000 people read The Walking Dead, the comic, all in all, if you include the collections and everything. 5 million people probably watched, 4 or 5 million people watched it on television, plus however many are going to buy it on a box set. That's a lot more people. So the majority of people, a good, I don't know what the percentage is of that, but an incredibly high percent of people are not aware of the comic. So to them, it's Frank Darabont's The Walking Dead. Only to a very small audience is it Robert Kirkman and Charlie Adlard's The Walking Dead. And I think, and rightly so, we recognise that fact. So we recognise that Frank is obviously going to take it in a direction he wants to take it, which is absolutely fine. Thankfully, he's a big fan of the book, so I think he'll always stay true to the book as well, even though he'll take it into directions that probably will surprise us. But I think he'll always come back to that that column.
The last episode seems to create controversy between the fan of the book, who thought that it was not worthily what the book story, and they are maybe disappointed by the end of the season. You see all the episodes?
I've seen, yes, I saw the last episode.
What do you think of the end of this season?
I think to be diplomatic, I think again I'll refer to my previous answer. I think it's in Frank's right to deviate it as he sees fit, and if he wants to add, shall we say, to the universe and explain a bit more about what happens to the zombies, if Frank's the expert. Frank's the guy that knows how TV and movie audiences react to stuff. We're the novices. We might know how a comics audience reacts, but we haven't got a clue how a TV audience reacts. So I'm leaving it in the more than capable hands of Frank to tell us another story. But yeah, believe you me, when we come back to season 2, I'm sure we'll be, should we say, back on track for more comic book shenanigans, rather than they're not going to go off and do something completely different now and that's it. We're abandoning the book. Far from it. Frank's too much of a fan of the book, I think, to ever do that. And if that was the case, what would be? They might as well just. There's nothing to stop them doing a zombie epic, calling it something else, and doing something incredibly similar. And there was there was no way we would be able to sue him for it, because let's face it, the plot of The Walking Dead, the actual core plot, isn't anything particularly original anyway. So we couldn't really complain if a TV station had sort of taken what we had and just called it something else and just started telling a different story. So I think we're in very safe hands, and like I say, Frank's very reverential to our little comic, and he'll and I think because Robert's heavily involved with him as well. I think we do have one half of the team is there, sort of making sure things don't stay on track again. So with Robert being so heavily involved, obviously the thing isn't going to suddenly spiral off into something completely different